So, in the last video, I did say that we would take some time to talk about the ILYA SAMSONOV Toronto Maple Leafs situation because I was on a trip when he got sent down, I wasn't able to talk about it. This is our opportunity now to do so. While also talking about this Samsonov thing, I wanted to go out there and answer the question as to whether or not the Toronto Maple Leafs actually ruin goaltenders. Yeah, we'll get into that as the video goes along, but for now, let's talk about Samsonov. So, this was a player initially taken in the first round in the 2015 draft. He was seen as the best goaltender in 2015. He was supposed to be in this class of guys like Shesterkin and Sorokin. A lot of people, myself included, said back in the mid-2010s that, hey, this is the next generation's worth of Russian goalies. Shesterkin, Sorokin, Samsonov. These guys are all going to be lit, it's going to be great, and they're going to battle each other for prosperity in that Metro division. That's going to be great, right? All these goaltenders against each other, but only two of them really lived up to their potential. As ILYA SAMSONOV, while he was okay with the Capitals, I mean, he had a .913 save percentage in 26 games played in 2019-20 and a .902 in 2020-2021, he definitely did not go to the lengths and bounds that the Shesterkins and the Sorokins had in that Metro division. He just did not live up to that standard, and as a result, you had Samsonov find himself on the Toronto Maple Leafs to start out 2022-2023. And admittedly, he was really good. .919 save percentage, .233 goals against, 42 games played. He played half the year. He was a .920 goaltender essentially. He had a winning record. He had a bunch of shutouts. Samsonov was great in Toronto. But in the playoffs, he had an .898 save percentage, a .313 goals against in 9 games played. A lot of people would go out there and say, hey, wait a minute, this was a facade. It's all fugazi. He disappeared in the postseason, and everybody was making a big deal about this. You had Joseph Woll coming in here stealing the show, putting his name on the #1 goaltender spot, and that carried over into the starting parts of this year. And especially for ILYA SAMSONOV, he had an .862 save percentage and a .394 goals against average in 15 games before getting sent down to the Marlies. Terrible numbers. Just terrible. But the thing is, there is some sort of a pattern that you could try to bring up that is being present here. And we actually did have a few articles that went out there and talked about this from months and maybe even a year ago. Let's go out there and read this piece on LeafsNation.com, published by James Reeve from October 2022. This was literally from 2 years ago. ILYA SAMSONOV's early success with the Leafs mirrors Jack Campbell's. And if you scroll down, it goes out there and talks about the start. He's performed quite well in his early career with the Maple Leafs, and there are quite a few similarities to him and former Leaf Jack Campbell. When the Leafs acquired ILYA SAMSONOV this offseason, signing him to a 1-year deal at $1.8 million as a UFA, it was largely expected that he would step in as the team's backup behind Matt Murray. His lower salary and shorter term suggested he was on a prove-it-type deal, with his status as an RFA at the end of it, allowing the team control over their future between the pipes if he showed early flashes in his career. Having a good backup is crucial to any contending team in the NHL, yada yada yada. Samsonov, however, has flourished in the early stages of his career with the Leafs, and the larger responsibility is something that he appears to be handling exceptionally well, even when the team in front of him is not performing up to their expected standard. Through his first 5 games with the Leafs, Samsonov had a 4-1-0 record with a GAA of 2-0-1 and a .932 save percentage. What's even more impressive is that all 5 of his starts have been classified as quality starts, which is where the goalie's save percentage is above his season average. Oh boy, this was 2 years ago, 1 year ago, 1 year ago and a bit, and everybody was on the Samsonov hype train. This guy was coming in, he was good, he had a great run, and there was so much to go forward with this player. But this article goes out there and says all of this, however, feels eerily similar to former Leafs backup turned starter Jack Campbell. Now, if you go out there and read the rest of the piece, it goes out there, talks about this entire situation. And if you go over to Jack Campbell and his entire tenure with Toronto, there was a similar thing here. backup guy, AHL guy, consistently like that with Dallas, Texas, LA, Ontario, before eventually getting traded over to Toronto. .915 save percentage in 6 games played in his opening stint with the Leafs, and then a .921 save percentage in that first season where he was the backup turned starter. He had a .934 save percentage in 7 games in the playoffs that year. Such fantastic goaltending out of Jack Campbell. But it all went downhill quickly. And maybe not even too quickly. Like ILYA SAMSONOV had experienced, Campbell had a .914 save percentage the year after that, which was great. But in the postseason, .897 goals against in 7 games, .315 goals against, or excuse me, .897 save percentage, .897 goals against would have been even worse. But he exhibited a very similar downfall. And now in Edmonton, the guy has an .873 save percentage in 5 games this year, a .450 goals against, some of the worst numbers in the league, and now he's lost his starting job to Olivier Rodrigue in the AHL with the Bakersfield Condors. It's not looking good for Jack Campbell. In the same way, it's not looking good for ILYA SAMSONOV right now. There's an article from November of 2023 that I also wanted to look at on the Hockey Writers, published by the Old Prof. Take a look at this. The mental battle of NHL goalies, ILYA SAMSONOV and Jack Campbell. Just last night, one of my favorite Toronto Maple Leafs people, Joe Bowen, tweeted, "I feel awful for Jack Campbell. He was so good while here in Toronto, but took upon himself when things went badly. Samsonov is doing the same thing. So much of goaltending is between the ears, and both goalies need positive reinforcement and less time with the press." Now, Joe Bowen, if you need the update, he is the radio voice with colorman Jim Ralph for the Toronto Maple Leafs. So he kind of is around the scene. He knows what he's talking about. He's seen these stories. He's had 42 seasons calling Maple Leafs games. And this entire perspective was brought up back in November. This was not even recent. This was from 2 months ago. And we are still talking about the same thing, that ILYA SAMSONOV has not been great, that Jack Campbell has gone out there and not looked all too great either. Samsonov's early season struggles in the net are obvious. 2 nights ago, he was yanked from the Tampa Bay game, and then 4 first-period goals, etc., etc. Fortunately, Joseph Woll was able to relieve him and have 2 amazing games, which was good. Joseph Woll has been fantastic this season. And then you have the idea saying that Samsonov's struggles are in his own head, in the same way that Jack Campbell's very much are in his. I mean, it doesn't take a genius to acknowledge that Jack Campbell was one of the most hard on himself kind of players we had seen in Toronto, and when he was given the microphone, he was given that Toronto media to be able to express that, he did not let up. He was a menace against himself, and that could be seen as a good or a bad thing. Hey, it's good because he's motivated to do better, but it could be seen as a bad thing because in a way, there's some sort of a defeatist attitude going on here. I don't know, you take the pill, you pick your poison. Jack Campbell exhibited some sort of a mental block. ILYA SAMSONOV, while he may not be that verbally expressive in that respect, especially when talking to the media, you could tell there was sort of a similar type of deal going on here. Monday night, as Samsonov sat dejectedly on the bench after being pulled, you could see it all over his face. He was confused, embarrassed, and in his own mind, guilty of putting his team in a horrible spot. Samsonov was down, and he knew somewhere inside that he was a better player than he was showing, and he has no idea what the issue is. Now, you could go out there and read the bottom part here. Same thing. Doesn't Samsonov remind you of the Jack Campbell situation? Samsonov's downturn and struggles are similar to those experienced by the Oilers goaltender Jack Campbell. Both players knew the mental toll that weighs on them because they have struggled. Both goalies are now facing challenges that have affected their confidence and mental well-being. Now, my question to you is, does this have a result to do with being a part of the Maple Leafs organization? What is the problem here? Is there a situation in Toronto where goaltenders are, let's just say, left hung out to dry, which may be seen as a potential situation which leads to them doing really well, starting out hot, and then eventually faltering? Campbell was good when he started in Toronto, up until the very end. He had an .897 save percentage in that postseason, and that was it. He wanted the starting type of money. They weren't willing to give it to him. He went to Edmonton. He did that. They gave the money to him, and everything just went down. Now, he did have a good postseason in 22-23 last season, which was great, .961 save percentage, but all those games came in relief. It was not really the same thing. Campbell fell off. Samsonov is exhibiting the same thing. So my question is, what is in the water with the Toronto Maple Leafs? What's going on here? Why are these players just falling off of a cliff. They experience one good season and then everything turns to crap the next year. Is it just the defense? Is it some voodoo problem with the goaltending? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And both these articles will be linked in the description. And bye.